Stand by. All right. We're just about ready to start the show, folks. I just want to make sure that we have our data flowing through to YouTube, and we do. Looks like we're good. All right. Everyone that's watching live, thank you for coming in. This is going to be a really interesting episode of This Week in Photo. It's waiting in the wings right now. I got two awesome minds to help tackle this topic with me. This is not one of your traditional TWiPs, right? So normally on This Week in Photo, we are, it's gear or technique, or, we're looking at people's work or examining their motivations or stuff like that. On this episode, I wanted to talk more about the quality of the gear that we're using, the cameras, the software, all that stuff, and sort of dive into it from are we beta testers? Are we really beta testers? Has that whole polish it to a fine gloss look and then ship your best of best to the customer? Is that gone away? Or is, and has what replaced it better than what we had, or is it worse? So that's what I want to talk about on the show. So I'm going to start right now. And on those lines, by the way, folks in the chat room, feel free to go ahead and chat with us and put your questions in there. The TWiP community manager, Chris Berry, who was on the show last week, is in there right now live moderating, and he will be filling in the questions in the Google Doc for us. And we have a little area in our Google Doc that all of the hosts are sharing that we use to sort of communicate. So go ahead and get your questions in there. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that we'll get to them because it gets confusing in the chat doing all this stuff at the same time. All right, here we go. We're going to start the show right now. Stand by. All right, here we go. This week on TWiP, it's all about quality or the death of it. Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the concept of quality. And is that concept dead or outdated, or has it moved on? Has it morphed into something else? And specifically as it applies to the tools and the things that we use, the online services that we use, our cameras, our lenses, our homes, our cars, all of this stuff. We're going to talk about that. And here to dive into these topics with me are two good brains here. First off, Erik Kuna. Erik, you've been on the show. You were on the show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks for coming back. You're just to remind folks that are watching this, make sure you go to thisweekinphoto.com, search for Erik Kuna or rocket photography, and you'll find the interview I did with him. Erik is a prolific rocket photographer, and he gets where no man has gone before in terms of getting those awesome SpaceX shots and other shots. So it's it was a pretty cool and insightful interview. Also on the show is my good friend, Mr. PhotoJoseph here of the PhotoJoseph channel over on YouTube, where he covers all things live streaming, cameras, and anything else that he's interested in at that moment. He covers.
Fair enough. It's like the variety show.
It's a variety show. All right, guys. Before we dive into the topic of the evening, I want to just kind of find out what you guys are up to. Joseph, let's start with you. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to talk about some of it a little bit later in terms of this trip you're preparing for. But what's going on in the world of PhotoJoseph?
Well, I am stoked to be able to say that I just finally wrapped, as of like 6 hours ago, this project I've been working on for better part of a year, but like really for the last month or so, another Lynda course, a lynda.com or LinkedIn learning course. Yeah. So I can't tell you what it's all about. It's one of those things. We're not supposed to do that till it's released, but it's done. It's wrapped. It's in the can. It's rendering right now and has been for the last like 12 hours. But yeah, I'm stoked about that. So we got that going. And, as always, pushing the YouTube channel. But one of the really fun things on the YouTube channel is that I have, and I talked to you about this, Frederick, but most of your viewers won't know this yet. So, of course, I always had PhotoJoseph.com. That was like my portfolio website. And then back in the day, I had ApertureExpert.com. And when Aperture Expert went away, that site evolved. It took a couple of iterations, and then it became PhotoApps.expert.
Yep.
Well, what I was doing there and what I was doing on the YouTube channel were starting to merge. They were starting to cross the streams, as you would say.
Good.
And so I finally decided to kill the PhotoApps.expert brand and make it all PhotoJoseph. So now PhotoJoseph.com is the the website that used to be photoapps.expert, which used to be Aperture Expert.
Yep.
But that is the site for where you'll find all the software tips and training and all the hardware tips and training that I'm doing. It's all now in one place.
Congratulations, man. I think that's a really, really, really smart move, right? To kind of have everything in one spot so you can focus your energy in one location, right?
Yeah, I think so. And one of the big parts of it, you know, like you can make hundreds of videos on YouTube, and then it's really hard for people to find them. You know, Facebook, it's impossible to find an old video, right? Forget about it. YouTube, yeah, you can search, but if you want to tell people, oh, I've done a few videos on the GX85, right? Well, what are they going to do? Go there and search PhotoJoseph GX85. They're going to find mine and a bunch of other stuff. And but now, and we're not done with this yet, but on PhotoJoseph.com, you can do a sort by or filter by hardware. We've always had filter by apps, and the list is extremely long of what's in there. But we're now adding the hardware taxonomy so that you can go filter by and you choose a camera, and it shows every show ever done about that camera or that lens.
Very cool. Very good.
And that I'm really stoked about. It just makes everything more findable.
Very cool. You're always geeking out. I love it.
Yeah, you know.
All right. Also on the show, Mr. Erik Kuna. Erik, so what's going on, man? In your world, have you shot any interesting, spaceships leaving the atmosphere recently?
Yeah, I just got back from one this week. So SpaceX launched a satellite for Telkom Indonesia. So they put a satellite up into orbit. And during there, I kind of last time I was talking about a project where we were starting to morph Tesla and SpaceX together. So this launch, we continued that. I continued that and shot I found a friend who had a P90D. So it took that over along with the SpaceX rocket and
what's a P90D for the unwashed non-Tesla drivers?
So performance being the P, 90 being the battery size, and D meaning dual motors. Oh. So it's the one that had ludicrous mode. Now there's the one that has the insane crazy mode or the maximum plaid or whatever. Yeah, plaid. Yeah. So but yeah, so it's really cool. I mean, got to shoot that. Got to kind of, keep diving into this whole concept of exposure blending with rocket streaks, which is kind of a new category. And then doing some light painting as well. So I've been experimenting there. And then this weekend, I've got a big launch for NASA. So NASA's sending up a solar probe it's a Parker solar probe to explore the sun. So something that's been working on for a while. Wow. So working on that. And then, we just launched our worldwide photo walk, which is a big thing we do because the other thing I do is
on the Kelby side of your life.
Yeah.
Right?
So, work over with Kelby 1. We just launched the photo walk. And that's a big event for us. It's one of those things where it's all done for charity. We don't profit off it at all. We just do it for the photo community. So we organize it. We get all the sponsors to fund it so we can fund the prizes, and we end up donating money to an orphanage we support as a company.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Awesome.
Over in Kenya.
So where did I would assume just kelby1.com and people can find it?
Well, if you go to PhotoWalk, worldwidephotowalk.com.
Oh, okay.
You can, and obviously if you Google it or whatever you want, you can get there. So we've got that. That's really cool because that's going to be one of those. We usually have about 30,000 photographers all over the world in about 1,000 cities. And we need walk leaders. So anybody who wants to lead a walk, you volunteer to lead a walk and organize it in your city, and then you just promote it in your city. And, we just ask people that they donate money, and then all that money, all the money from the T-shirts, all the money from the website, all the money raised by sponsorships, it all goes to the orphanage.
I love that.
Wow.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to lead a couple of those for a couple of years, and it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun.
It's definitely a great learning experience. I mean, Scott started photo walks way long time ago. Yep. We actually have the trademark on the term photo walk. Not that we enforce it ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys got some litigation to do then, man.
No, I mean, what we said is we just don't want anybody to abuse it. So nobody's abused it, that kind of stuff. Yep. But we also have our gallery coming up with next week. So Kelby 1, we put on a gallery from one of our members.
Oh.
So that's really cool. Members submit, and we have thousands of members submit to, be chosen to have their own gallery here at Kelby 1. So we fly people to the gallery here. We actually have a gallery on site that anybody can come visit at any time in the community. And then we have a gallery opening. And this artist that we have, this Kelby One member, his name's Ramton. He goes by Rammy. And he's just got this awesome landscape work. I mean, just crazy landscape work. So I'm looking forward to that. And, people can go watch it for free. It's gallery.kelby1.com. It's next Friday. Or no, Saturday. Next Saturday.
I love that.
So that's what's going on. And then we got a lot of classes, like we were just talking about, with the training and the courses. And a lot of classes coming up. I got one next week from Unmesh, which is really cool. Unmesh Dinda. So he's a guy who does a lot of stuff on YouTube, actually.
Yeah.
And he's doing a cool Photoshop class coming out next week.
That's cool. That's cool. Congratulations. That's you guys are always like when I did the interview with Scott.
Got stuff going on.
Right? Yeah, when I did the interview with Scott, I mean, it was it was great because Scott is like just raw energy, right? So, yeah, he's a raw energy, but he always seems so like genuine, when he's like talking about his motivations for doing this stuff, and
and that's him.
Yeah, it's just it's the normal way, and I appreciate that. I appreciate what you guys are doing for the photography community as well. So, cool. Thanks. Awesome. Well, from my the only thing that I have to announce is coming up this weekend is the F64 Live conference down in Riverside, Corona area in California that I'm doing the keynote for and starting to sweat bullets about that keynote. So if you guys are in the area.
Are you not prepared?
Oh, yeah, I'm prepared. I wrote the thing weeks ago and threw it away and wrote it again. But if you are down there, I would love to see you. Come hang out with us. Have some photography fun at F64 Live. You can find out the details at f64live.com. And then the last thing before we dive in that I'm happy to mention this. TWiP is finally ubiquitous again on all of the distribution networks. So TWiP is on Spotify, we're on TuneIn, we're on Stitcher, we're on Google Podcasts, and of course iTunes. And if none of those work, just go to our subscribe page and grab the RSS feed, and you can paste that wherever you want it to go. So
nice.
Yeah,
cool.
So TWiP is ubiquitous, and I'm very, very happy about that. So if you use any of those platforms, please just do a search for This Week in Photo, and you'll see our beautiful logo. Just click that subscribe button, and away we go.
Awesome.
Hey, Frederick, before we jump into the story, I still wanted to mention the India trip.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Well,
we're going
to talk about that later during the Pick of the Week area. But yeah, give us the.
We'll just do it. We'll do the quickie here.
Give me a foreshadowing of it. Yeah.
Workshop / photography tour through India in January 30th to February 9th, I believe the dates are next year. Mm-hmm. PhotoJoseph.com/India TWiP. We've got a special website set up for TWiP listeners with a little discount in there, and we'll lead that up. We'll lead that for the end, but. Yeah, we're doing the workshop in India, PhotoJoseph.com/India-TWiP, and it's all there.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions to ask you about that trip. I'm going to hold them until we do the.
Yeah, let's do that at the end.
But yeah, that's cool. Congratulations on that TWiP. You all my friends are going to these crazy places. It's all except me. I'm not going any place crazy right now.
You can come with me. Come to India with me if you want.
I could come to India.
You could.
All right. Well,
let's go into crazy virtual places.
Well, yeah. I travel right here, right?
Yeah.
It's easy. TSA doesn't bother my index finger as I'm.
That's true.
Not yet.
Not yet. They haven't figured that one out. Well, guys, let's dive in. So the featured topic for this evening is beta testers, or are we all beta testers now under the umbrella of, I'll go out on a limb and say the diminishing quality or shifting quality, or what we or manufacturers determine or say is. This is what we call finished, or we're ready to put this in front of consumers now. Google back in the day, you remember when Google Mail launched? It was in perpetual beta. I mean, it was years and years. That thing was in beta before they took the beta moniker off. So I think maybe they had something to do with this whole let's just keep it in a form of beta. But not to be too long-winded on the intro, from my standpoint, it seems like that we are in a perpetual world of. Is it this good enough to ship? And then we'll wait for feedback from angry customers and fix whatever, we'll fix whatever squeaky wheels squeak at that time. Erik, what's your perspective on that? And well, first of all, are we there? Are we in that beta world now? And quality is back in the 70s and 80s or before that even? And now we're just beta kids? What do you think?
Well, I do think that, it's an interesting perspective, because I do think that you're right if you want to call us. I think we're in a beta world. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure it's the worst thing to be in a beta world. I think in a world like that, you iterate really fast. Now, I think you hit on the key point there, though. When that happens, is quality sometimes suffers in that world. So that's where, I mean, if you really look at it, while you could say quality has suffered in certain areas, if you look at the progress we've made in the last 20, 30 years, it's been leaps and bounds over the iterations we made 100 years before that and 100 years before that. Sure. I mean, it's the quicker we're moving. But I do think that that's impacting quality. Mm-hmm. Things like, look at even YouTube. It's like everybody can post a video. There's no level of entry into that quality. That you can make a great quality video, but anybody can make any video. Mm-hmm. So it's more about the content than the quality. But that goes for the products too. I mean, that's definitely something that's happened. But I mean, when you talk about beta testing and stuff like that, I definitely think we're that. I mean, look at Kickstarter and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, that's all born out of what you're talking about. I think we've got to the point where we just want the cool idea made quicker. So we're willing to sacrifice some quality to get it in our hands.
I agree, and I'll be the first to say that. Yeah, I'm happy to sacrifice a little bit of quality to get a product quicker. But the caveat on that is, as long as I know what I'm getting into before I make the purchase. Like, don't unwittingly put me into a beta program with some unfinished software that shouldn't ship for another 2 months, but you're calling it finished. So that, you can get my feedback, so that then you can make it better for all those people that come after me. Joseph, what about you, man? How do you come in on this?
Yeah. I mean, I totally see both sides of it. The industry, how quickly it's moving and how quickly the competition is moving, it does force people to iterate very quickly and to release things before they're ready. Because to some degree, you go, well, we can release the software with 5 new features and be totally done, or we can release it with 10 new features and be half done. And we need to release those 10 new features because there's 5 other companies that are also releasing things with those 10 new features. Right. And even though their level of quality may be even lower than ours, the industry is going to go, well, how come you don't have that? Why don't you have that? So it's kind of forcing the hand. And it's fine if you don't mind. Like you said, if you know what you're getting into and you have this expectation that you're going to have to deal with some issues, but when you're in a production environment and you just need to get the job done, that can be extremely frustrating when things don't work. They're crashing or there's bugs popping up and you can't get the job done. You're going, come on, man, I just need to ship this, whatever it is that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Why didn't you ship software that actually works?
That's the scary part. You hit it right on the head. If we just narrow this down, because I want to talk about a variety of industries, but if we just narrow this down to, SaaS, software as a service, like what we're using right now. We're using, YouTube, Google Tube, whatever you want to call it, to do the show, and it's free, so we can't really complain about any. Well, it's relatively free, right? So we can't really complain about anything. But at the same time, like I remember when we were doing TWiP using Google Hangouts. And it was painful every week because you jump in, notwithstanding the quality issues that Google Hangouts had, but they would change things all the time, Right. So, I'm a creature of like muscle memory and okay, this is over here. I know where everything is. Okay, let's start the show. And you start the main engine for the show. And it's okay, somebody decided they're going to add this feature, and now you got to stand on one foot and whistle this tune in order to get it to start. And, like with software, especially mission critical software as a service type applications, don't you guys, I mean, like when I was having the frustrations with Hangouts, I was like, could we just have a pro version that I pay you guys $10 a month for, that you don't change anything until you let us know that something, or give us a roadmap or something.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of so many of these software services that are free. And for the vast majority of people, they want it to be free. Everybody wants Facebook free, Twitter to be free, Google to be free. Everybody wants this all to be free. But there is a small percentage of us that will say, look, I'm willing to pay for this if you give me something that works. Give me something that's reliable. It doesn't have to have a new feature every other day. Give me something that's not going to change, that I can rely on. Like you said, you want to be able to work from muscle memory. And I'm more than happy to pay for these services. I want a tech support person I can contact. I want reliable feedback. If I find a bug, I want to know that it's been identified and that you're going to fix it. But we don't have that for so many of these services. Right. And when you have a company that's trying to do something that they are doing that, they end up either charging ludicrous amounts of money for it, or it just doesn't have even the basic capability of what you can get for free. Right. For my live show, for the longest time, I stayed away from using YouTube because it didn't quite have the feature set that I needed, and I was paying a lot of money a month to be able to do live streaming, and even that was problematic as heck. Right. But then once YouTube hit a certain threshold, it was like, well, you know what? It's free, and it works reasonably well, but it's still better than the service. Even though I'm going against what I'm saying right now, it's going against this idea of paying for something that works. I was paying for something that didn't work all the time, and that's like.
Well, Eric.
Well, that can definitely be frustrating when you're paying. I think the key here is the payment. If you're paying for something, that's when it's weird that you're being a beta tester. Yeah. That's when if you're getting something for free, for example, like your example there, where you're saying, well, I was doing Google Hangouts. I mean, Google Hangouts is a way to do it, and it's free. Mm-hmm. But there was other ways to do it. It just was very expensive and cost prohibitive a lot of times, Yeah. So it's, we kind of run those risks. But, if you look at what Google Hangouts and what that technology did for pushing us forward, holy moly. I mean, we're doing broadcasts that 20 years ago would have taken satellite trucks and live links and would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for infrastructure. We're doing for free.
With a couple clicks.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's an awesome world to live in.
And that's why I do think
that's where I think when you are paying for something, that's a big thing. Like when I start paying for something and then I'm in a beta program, that's a little weird. Unless, I'm willing to be in the beta program, but then you better test out your product before you release it to me as a paying customer, But that's where you get to like what you're talking about with like, software as a service. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there where they start out with a lot of, free, and the reason they're doing it free to start out is to get that beta testing in for the software development, saves them money, because that way they're basically having us find the bugs, rather than paying somebody to comb through their code and find bugs.
Which I'm okay with that. Just to be clear, I'm okay with that. With
no, I get it.
But just with the knowledge of knowing that I'm using something that's not quite finished, right? So, but where that bites you is like. For example, I just had this house that I'm sitting in right now. It was built less than a year ago. I had it built less than a year ago. It's one of these sort of California, monopoly track home type deals, right? And I mean, it's beautiful. It looks fine until you look closer. And you start finding all these little things that are wrong with it, or they only put one coat of paint on this, or, it's been this long laundry list of issues that I've had with the home. And the thing that one of the things that sparked this episode was I remember having a conversation with one of the builder representatives, and it was for a squeak in the master bedroom next to the bathtub. You walk on the floor and you hear this every time you walk in there, which is annoying, right? So I call him up. I'm like, you guys got to come fix this because the house is under 100% warranty, right? So you guys got to come fix this. It's driving me crazy. And he comes over and he's like, oh, yeah, the squeak thing. Yeah, that happens in all of our homes. And so I'm like, what? Really? Why? If it happens in every home, why, A, is it happening? Why you have a manufacturing defect? Why not fix it before the customer moves in? B, if you know it's in a variety of homes, why do I have to find it then call you? Why don't you call me and say, hey, we know there's an issue with your bathtub. When can we schedule to come and get it fixed? Those are the kinds of things that scare me. And from a house standpoint, I'm thinking, okay, if something as little as that they wouldn't tell me about.
Right.
Like, is my house built on an Indian burial ground? What about my, did they skimp on the wiring? Is my place going to burn down? I lose trust. And the same thing goes with software and my cameras. If I know that, like with TWiP Pro, our community, I'm in constant contact with those guys because they're iterating and releasing new versions of it all the time. But, like I'll get on with them and they'll say, oh, yeah, we know about it. It's got performance issues if you have this, and this going on. And I'm like, well, how come you didn't tell me that? Like, now I look like an ass to my members because I can't tell them that. Why not just brace me and arm me? So that was kind of the impetus of this. So there's this split between you don't want to like curtail or short circuit innovation and this engine that we've built for beta testing to get things quicker to market. And I have more on that later we'll talk about. But at the same time, if I'm in a Tesla, Eric, you drive a Tesla, right? So if I'm in a Tesla, I don't want a firmware update coming down that now my brake pedal operates differently, and now I have to relearn how to drive.
But I am a constant beta tester for Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many features that it says right on there, hey, you're a beta tester. Are you agreeing to be a beta tester? And you're like,
at least it tells you.
Well, that's a key. I mean, you should, if any company that's beta testing needs to tell people they're beta testing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do that all the time with our members. If we're coming out with a new service, and we even have a whole section in our community where we have members that are willing to beta test. And we've had our members beta test for Adobe on their products, but we know that we're beta testing, and walking into it. It's different if you're paying for a product and they're not disclosing that you're the beta tester. That is a problem. That's unacceptable, and it is weird that we're in the world today that is acceptable.
Yeah. No doubt. I think I look back to the days when I was happy to beta test. There was a time where I was like, oh yeah, I'll take anything, I'll install anything. I love beta testing. Give me the latest operating system. Give me the latest everything. I'm way too busy for that now. I haven't installed any labeled beta software on any of my systems in years because I don't have the time for it. I don't want to be the beta tester. I just want to get my job done. And when you still end up feeling like a beta tester, you're going, hold on a second. Why am I having to report bugs on software that I paid for? 10 years ago I was doing this, but I was okay because I was installing the beta version. I didn't install a beta version.
Right.
And I'm still doing it.
Yeah, you're not that kid anymore. I mean, it's different. Like, new software comes out for the PlayStation 4, or an update or whatever. I'm like, I don't care. Put it on there. Maybe it'll make it better. Maybe it'll brick it. I don't care. Because it's not mission critical hardware or software, but the house, my camera gear, my computer. Do we trust that? I mean, even Joseph, when we were at Apple together, you knew the rule was even when Apple rolls out new software updates, employees are like, I'm not gonna put that on. I'm not gonna put that on my machine right away.
Yeah, it's an unspoken rule.
Yeah. Wait for the those people to rush in that have to have the latest and greatest to find the prickly holes and then patch them. And then you install the dot release, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have to be?
It's so funny.
Why do we have to be in a dot release, Joseph? Why do we have to be in a dot release economy?
But apparently we do. It's like the latest. What's the next Mac OS? We're in High Sierra now. What's the next one?
I don't know. I give up.
Whatever.
12.
So
somewhere in California,
somewhere else. So when that was announced, one of its big features is the dark mode, right? The whole UI goes dark, and so many people installed a beta because they wanted that. Like, really?
I know.
Really?
I know.
This you're willing to put up with? I mean, good for Apple that they're going to be able to get this kind of beta feedback on a labeled beta app. Labeled beta operating system that most people are installing just because it's got a dark mode. You're like, are you kidding me? But hey, good for them. But I'm not doing that. I used to.
Yeah,
I used to be that guy. Not anymore.
Well, now you're making money, right? And then that's the line. If things are mission critical, and mission critical just translates to, I'm paying my mortgage and feeding my kids with this thing that I'm using. And are you going to make the gamble that some engineer did his math right, and won't impact hours and hours of your life as you try to reverse troubleshoot the issue that they got you into?
Yeah, and one of the problems that I see with it is that you go, okay, so a company releases this software that they know is not quite ready, but they got to release it for whatever reason. It's out there, and they say, our users are going to tell us we have problems, and we're going to get that feedback. But users don't. And what percentage? I have no idea, obviously. You can make up a statistic. Let's say that 1% of the users actually take the time to write a bug report, to send an email, to figure out who to send an email to, and send a bug report off. And if, by God, they actually get a response from the company wants to know, well, how did you get there? How did you reproduce this? And, that's legit. As an engineer, you got to know how to reproduce the problem. But as an end user, I'm like, look, the stupid thing just crashed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You got to give them your whole 23andMe breakdown in order to get the get the thing fixed.
Yeah. So now I am acting as a beta tester. I am submitting bug reports, but I'm not getting paid for this.
Yeah.
Pony up. If I submit you a legitimate bug, give me $100. Then I'm going to be more inclined to give you a bug.
Yeah. Or otherwise, at least a discount on a future purchase or something. Give you some sort of compensation. I would argue, I know there's systems, I don't know what Apple's using now, but I remember back in the day it was Radar, right? The bug tracking system. And if they're still using that, great. But I would think that they're based on how frequently people communicate using mechanisms like Twitter, etc. Maybe there's a way to incorporate that in to make it more painless, submitting bugs. I don't know. Erik,
Yeah,
so how do you feel, like, before you answer, how do you feel about, like, driving around in a car, even though you've signed up for it, but driving around in a car that's beta? See, that would be scary for me.
I'm okay with it because, I believe in the mission and the vision of what's going on. So I don't mind being a beta tester for something that I believe in. Yeah. Something that I want us to go towards, because everybody has to start somewhere. I mean, we've been beta testing since the beginning of time. One guy was like, I wonder if I can make fire. And the guy's like, go for it. And tell me if you burn your
beta fire.
Yeah. Somebody had to beta test it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where you get down. I think one of the things to kind of piggyback, what we're talking about here with the feedback loop. I think one of the things there that I think is very important, and this is something, again, Elon, it's a quote from Elon, and he talks about, beta testing and feedback loops. And he says, his quote was, pay attention to negative feedback and solicit it, particularly from friends. Hardly anyone does that, and it's incredibly helpful. I think I know me in our company, we really embrace that as far as paying attention to feedback. We always listen to feedback. And I think that's what's very frustrating as an end user in a lot of these cases that you're talking about, is if you I don't even know if you have to, I know you don't have to pay people to do this. It'd be nice if companies that didn't listen paid you when you reported a bug. But I know that if you just listen to people and actually pay attention to their negative feedback, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of companies just release something, and then I even see this with a lot of engineers or a lot of programmers. They almost don't believe the end user.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm always the advocate for the end user, going, they wouldn't be telling us it. I mean, there's no reason. Why would they spend a half an hour, on a phone call talking to a support rep? Right. Why would they draft a 3 paragraph email? Obviously something's going on here. We need to listen to them. We need to figure it out. We need to contact them. And when you do that, and that's where I do. I mean, I don't mind driving around a car where the guy sends me updates through the internet.
Yeah.
So when they have something that goes wrong with a car, my car becomes safer. Yeah. And you know what? When they have stuff that, like they say update maps, or there's updated navigation. It just comes the next morning. I wake up and it's just there.
But they're not messing with mission critical systems like, hey, right, no. We're going to update your braking or your drivetrain or your torque or things like that, right?
Let us know if you're able to stop at the next stop sign, right? It's not quite like that.
Right.
No. They're not going to do that. But obviously they do add safety features.
Yeah.
In fact, this fall, you're going to get the safety feature of blind spot detection. It should have it on the car already. Not going to argue that it shouldn't have that on the car already.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool that you don't have to buy the next model year to get the next thing. It just kind of comes out, you know.
That is killer. Yeah, because ordinarily you'd be in negotiation with the salesperson. I'll tell you what, I'll throw in blind spot navigation for you and and updated maps, for an extra whatever, Yeah, so here I want to switch gears a little bit, Joseph. I want you to tackle this one first because you are an artist and you are somewhat of a technologist and you're a streamer. You got a lot of ers on your into your name.
I like that. I'm just getting a new business card that says
That's it.
Good. I like it.
Asterisk is you. But if we look at this through the lens of software, because we're talking mostly about software, not so much hardware right now. If we're talking about software and we look at software and maybe even hardware through the lens of it is art, right? A piece of software is art. Okay, let's start with that premise. Now let's move on and look at a company. I won't name any names because I'm not naming any names in this episode, but for the most part. But if we look at a company you and I both know, we probably all know, that make a particularly bloated piece of streaming software that is very hard to use, and yet they keep releasing new features for said software, but its core functionality has not been polished yet. Does that mean that company is creating art and we're just along for the ride as consumers, or or do they have more responsibility? What do you take out of that?
Well, I didn't buy art when I bought that software.
Right.
I didn't pay $800 for a piece of art. If I paid $800 for a piece of art, it'd be hanging on my wall and I'd be looking at it while sipping scotch at the end of the day. No, that was not art.
Yeah.
Had it been perfect, it might have been art.
Right.
But it was not perfect.
But can you consider software art? Are software engineers artists?
Ooh. That's a tough one.
I know Stephen Scharf in the chat room is probably screaming at his computer right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there is certainly an art form. There are artistic endeavors to it, but I don't know that I would call it certainly would call it as a profession art. As a trade, I wouldn't call it art, but it can be artistic. I'm not a coder, so I can't speak from experience that way, but I'm sure you could say this is beautiful code. It has been written very artistically. Maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. Again, not an engineer, but as an end user, I don't really see the back end coding of it as art. I might say, like, my own web engineer that I use to do my website, he does incredible stuff. I have absolutely no idea how he does what he does, but I know that I can call him and I can say, hey, I need the website to do this, and he'll go, okay, and he'll make it happen. That to me, it may as well be art, but it may as well be voodoo or magic, because I have no idea. I just know that he goes and does things and it happens.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know if I'd call it art. Art seems like a bit of a stretch.
Eric, is software engineering art? Or in other words, or can it be collaborative art where you got a designer, UI person, UX person, engineer, etc.?
I mean, I believe that. I mean, I kind of take a look. I think everything is an art form, like we were just talking about. Some are easier to say, oh, that's art. But I do think that there's a beauty. I mean, if you look at it, what is art? It's something that is appreciated and you drive beauty and inspiration from it. That really, I mean, could be software. I mean, it could be, for me, it's things like space travel and space exploration and these rockets and these engines and the beauty of what's going on. Yeah, it's an art. I mean, I really think that those guys building those things and the engineers and the coders, like, they're artists. It's just their art is a different medium. Yeah, it's just a different medium. I mean, it's just it just matters. I mean, well,
I'd say in a particular elevated form of it, you've got a million. Just use software engineers. You got a million software engineers in a room, and maybe a couple of them are at such a high level where they are considered artists among their peers. They are deities among their peers. They are so good, so sought after, so revered that they are essentially artists, gods, whatever you want to throw at them as a label. But that profession as a whole isn't considered art.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at it that way.
Well, you could. I mean, in that respect, and this is how I feel. Like, you could say the same thing about photography. There's tons of people that take snapshots.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No doubt. and just because of the medium being photography, we say, well, we're artists. Like, no, we're not all artists. At the end of the day, there's certain people like you're talking about that are at that level where. Yeah, they're artists, and I totally believe. Yeah, there's people that are trying to aspire to be artists, and trying to aspire to reach that. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely art in a lot of things.
I agree with that.
But should it be in our tools though? I don't want.
Oh, no, I
understand. There's elegance in code and mathematics behind everything we touch and look at. It's elegant mathematics that make things possible. I get that, but at the same time, like when I look at software, even the browsers that we're using, I need them to be like the power jack on the wall, right? I don't want elegance. I just want, when I plug something into that thing, I'm getting voltage out that's going to make something else happen. When I use a hammer, I want it to nail stuff. I don't care about that hammer. I don't love it. I'm not a fanboy to the hammer. I just want it to put that nail in the wall, right?
Yeah, but along those lines, I think that great companies are made off of great products. And really at the end of the day, if you've got a superior piece of software, you're going to rise to the top. Now, what happened with certain companies, like the company you're talking about, is at one time they had such a great piece of software compared to other people that they got the market share. But what's going to happen is slowly but surely that's going to creep away if you're not releasing a great product.
Yeah.
So it's just time that's going to weed that out, where that situation and people that are developing software, that there's only so much time you can be doing that, to where you're just going to basically kill your base. You're going to go, people don't look at your product as being great anymore. I mean, that's where it's hard, though, because you've invested in that product. You've spent all this money. You feel like, well, why can't you just do what these other guys are doing or fix this problem? But, it's hard for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the solution? I mean, we're 45 minutes into the show already. You see how quickly these shows go? It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. But I want to get to the picks of the week segment before we run out of time here. But what's the solution for all this? From the construction problems we have here in California for these sort of homes that they're slapping up as fast as they possibly can, and then nature burns them down as fast as they can. Right? So from that all the way through to software issues, like, is there a line in there between, okay, these kinds of things on the left here, those we need to pay a little bit more attention to and polish up a little bit more, and then on the right here, this is a beta ecosystem where we have our SpaceXs in there that are pushing the ball forward and advancing mankind. Therefore, they're in an iterative process, but I don't necessarily want an iterative process on my camera or my oven, So, Eric, I'll let you close it off on your side. What do you think? What's the solution?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm definitely gonna camp out on the side that I think it's better that we take risks and we try to fail. That I think with it, as long as I'll make that caveat is, if it's a consumer product and people are paying for it, you better have worked out the bugs and the failures before you came to market. But in most cases, we should embrace failure. Because if we don't fail, we're not innovating. So, when you get down to it, and that's something that drives me, is that, concept of, you can't be afraid of failing. You have to embrace it, and you have to attack it, because that's the way we innovate. And that's where you get down to it, is with what you're talking about with beta testing and stuff like that. I'm gonna camp more on the side where I'm gonna say I'd rather us test with a purpose, and get farther along as a society than wait for something to come out because it's got to be perfect. But at the same time, I think my caveat to that is, when companies are charging you for something and you're expecting it to function a certain way, it needs to work, and you don't need to just release a statement that says, hey, our bad. You need to fix it. Mm-hmm. You need to spend money to fix it, or you need to take the products back and recall them, or you need to do something.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's different categories in there, right? I mean, there's you basically drew a nice box around all of them, right? All the way from, we're going to innovate or die, or just, if you're not failing, fail forward. If you're not failing, getting up, trying something new, then you're not pushing the species forward. But then on the other side, if you're doing mission critical stuff, tell me what you're doing, because I'm not your guinea pig, and it's disingenuous for you to put out software, hardware, whatever, and not tell me that there are issues with this that may impact my marketing copy of what I said I was spending my money on. If anything impacts that, I need to know about it before I hand over my credit card or click buy now on Amazon or whatever. Joseph, you have any closing thoughts on this?
Sure. Kind of two different directions, actually. So agreeing with what you're saying, of course, and just to expand on that, I think if a company is going to release something, nobody can release software that's perfect. It's just, the systems are too complex. They're too complex. There's too many possible iterations, too many possible combinations. You never know what the end user is really going to do. You're going to run into problems, so accept that. But the path needs to be that the end user, the consumer, can communicate clearly and know they're going to get feedback, know they're going to get a response, know that issue is going to be taken seriously. I think that's a big part of it. We can't expect to buy things that are 100% flawless. That's just unrealistic today. Yeah. But you can expect that a company is going to stand behind their product and offer to fix it, communicate to you, or if it really is truly unfixable, at least say that to you and say, look, we're sorry, but there's just nothing we can do about it. Do you want your money back? But now let me throw something out there that's a little bit out of left field, but looking farther into the future, we are what if maybe we are right now in kind of a crossroads period where the software has gotten so complex that it's kind of out of control in the sense that we can't possibly control every aspect of it. We are leaning as an industry, we're heading towards neural network, deep learning, AI, all of this stuff. At some point, this software needs to fix itself. The software needs to be smart enough that when it crashes or it sees a crash coming, it rewrites its own code to work its way around that and realize that this is an inevitable problem that we're heading towards that shouldn't happen. So rewrite the code and move around it.
Because what happens when that software says, you know what, the main problem with stuff that's happening are these carbon-based life forms that are infesting Earth. If I get rid of those, it'll be awesome.
It's just Terminator at that point. We're all done.
I don't know. I think that's. I mean,
I definitely agree with what Joseph's saying there. I mean, that's gonna be the future. Is I know that right now software engineering and coding and those jobs are sought after, and this is looking way into the future. I'm not saying tomorrow, but there will be a point where that will become antiquated. That is something that and I don't mean that there'll still be a need for it, but most of the procedural stuff will be done by machines. Yeah. And really what it's going to come down to is problem solving. It's going to come down to creative thinking. It's going to be more us telling the machine what we want to do, and that's where I do think that the coders and the engineers nowadays that are doing that already do that. Yeah. They're such good problem solvers. They're such good innovators that they make a great product, and those are going to be people that are sought after because it's not going to the machines and the computers and all that stuff is going to do it for you. But that's a totally different topic.
That's a whole different show right there. I mean, because like Erik, down your alley would be, and I think I was reading a science fiction story about this the other day, but it was talking about, it was kind of overlaying, the best science fiction overlays fact and fiction, right? Mm-hmm. But it was talking about a fictional company that sounded very much like SpaceX had perfected large-scale digital printing of objects, right? So, and they had sent their, space vehicles to the moon to practice and build an entire colony with robots and AI and all this stuff, and they're programmed to to understand that bad things are happening and how to get over it. But the idea was you send these things there, and they build a little town for you, and then you send humans there to go occupy it. And then if that works, you go to the moon and you do, or you go to Mars rather, and you do the same thing.
That's what you can hope for. You can hope for that it's going to be more like WALL-E and less like Terminator. without all the diabetes, in the chair and the diabetes.
You're right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well. Yeah, I hope it's going to be like a cross between WALL-E and a nice Terminator, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, well, we can only hope. According to your friend Elon Musk, we're all living in a simulation anyway, so it's all moot, right? So
we could be.
All the bugs in software.
There's a high probability.
Yeah, it's a high probability. Almost a certainty. Almost a certainty. I think I read that we are living in a simulation. It's just, are you an NPC, a non-player character, or a player?
Guess you'll find out.
Go watch Ready Player One, right? Yeah. Well, cool. All right, guys. Well, this has been a fascinating topic. We could go on for hours, especially with guys that can hold a conversation like this. This is amazing. But I want to close that off, folks. Again, in the chat room, if you want to address us, please post a question in there. @mention This Week in Photo to highlight your question. But regardless, Chris Berry is in there collating questions and putting them into our Q&A segment in our Google Doc. So if you do that, he'll find them, and we'll get to them in the next segment that's coming up after Picks of the Week, which we're moving into now. The Picks of the Week is a segment where you two get to answer questions, or not answer questions, but to recommend something that's photography related to the This Week in Photo audience. Erik, Kuna, I'm going to let you go first, man. It's your first time on TWiP. What's your pick of the week?
I'll tell you, so one of the things that I am, getting into, so I have been pretty much locked into natural light photography, my light source being a rocket or continuous light, I should say, not natural, but continuous light, rocket, flashlights, light painting, that I own a flash, but I do not love my Flash. I hate my Flash. But I'll tell you this: that's where my recommendation is actually Scott Kelby came out with a course that I am going to go apply this weekend because I'm like, I got to get into this, because what's happening is I have certain images in my head that I want to produce for like my rocket photography, but I know I cannot produce them without certain tools, and one of the tools is Flash. So I want to get into that more. Well, I've taken his class. Obviously, it's pretty easy for me to take the class, being at Kelby 1, and that class really demystified Flash for me. I've tried to have it clarity, and I try to think of myself as I'm pretty smart with it, but it's just always been kind of like just complex. And this class, he like really broke it down. It's a class just called Just One Flash. Nice. And what it is it makes you fall in love with your Flash. So this weekend, that's where I'm going to actually experiment and actually for the first time go on I've done and planned out a shoot that I'm going to use the Flash with. And I'm looking forward to it because he really took and just demystified it. Yeah. And that's really the thing that I tell people is, if you're not a member, you can always sign up to be a member. It's $9 a month. Yeah. Or you can become a free member. Actually, Kelby 1 over at Kelby 1, you can become a free member. We give you 12 courses for free. So if you ever want to check it out, and you can go check out the class. He has a class on Beginner Start Here, which is really cool. But this Just One Flash class is just killer. It will make you, if you're that person, if you're the person who your Flash, you love your Flash, all that stuff, not for you. Yeah. But if you're that person like me, where you have a Flash and it's sitting there and you're like, why did I spend $600 on this? Or why did I spend $300 on this? Like, this will solve it for you like that.
All right. It's called Just One Flash, you said?
Just One Flash.
All right. Check it out. Kelby1.com, Just One Flash. I think I'll buy that. I'm going to play around with that because I understand Flash photography, but it's like any other kind of photography, especially anything, right? I mean, there's always more to learn, and there's always blanks to fill in.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
And I'm a perpetual learner like that. Like, I just love that stuff. I mean, that's why I do what I do. So.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah, that's it's a never-ending conveyor belt of cool stuff to try and learn and implement, and very cool. Awesome.
Frederick, you remember back in the day talking about available light photography? It's like, I only shoot with available light. Yeah. If I got a flash in my pocket, it's available.
Yeah, exactly. Or
that was you that was saying that. I remember that.
I used to say that. Yeah, I shoot with whatever's available. Yeah, but people that say, I only shoot available light these days that don't have that flash in their pocket available. What that translates to is, I don't understand flash.
I didn't take the time to learn it.
Yeah, I don't understand it. So it's easier for me just to open that window and shoot with that light, right?
Yep.
Which is not, it's not bad either. All right, well, cool. All right, thanks, Erik, for that. That was a good first pick of the week, man. Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right, Joseph. I keep wanting to call you by your full name, PhotoJoseph.
Why?
I don't know.
Who knows my full name? Nobody knows my last name.
I know. You're like Rumpelstiltskin, right? If you know if I know your name,
sure.
Or Mitzelplick from Superman or whatever. But what is your?
Do you have any idea what he's talking about? I don't know.
I'm nerding out. See, the listeners know. See, because we're on the same page. You guys are too cool for school. You got to be a nerd.
Well, I want to cheat and do two, but I want to tell you a little bit more about the workshop if we can do that. But I do actually have a real pick. Can we kind of do both?
Do the workshop first, and then let's do the pick. Yeah.
So the whole deal with this workshop, it's we're going to India. It is a photography tour / workshop. We're going to be going around a bunch of places where the cities we're hitting are Kolkata, Allahabad, Varanasi, and New Delhi. And in each one of these cities is going to be amazing. But in Allahabad, we are there for this thing called the Kumbh Mela. Let me make sure I got this right. Yeah, Kumbh Mela. It is the largest gathering of human beings on the planet. And this Kumbh Mela is actually a half Mela, so it's only going to be 30 million people.
Jesus.
I know,
wow.
Right?
Yeah. See, where's Skynet? We need Skynet down there.
It's been going on forever and ever. It's a massive gathering of humanity, and we are going to be there to photograph it. And that's just one part of this trip. We're going to see traditional wrestlers, and we're going to see art, all kinds of art and food experience. It's just going to be an absolutely epic trip. And there's a whole huge website, tons and tons of information, probably frankly a bit too much information, but over at the website. So if you go to photojoseph.com/India TWiP, for This Week in Photo, obviously, you'll get directed to a special page that has a note there about a discount. So we're offering a $300 discount off of the tour for any member who mentions the TWiP show, that they heard about it on TWiP. And if any of my currently signed up attendees are listening right now going, I want the $300 off, email me and you'll get it too. Don't worry about it. We'll get you covered. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not gonna leave the people who already signed up in the cold. So we got a few people signed up. We got a few more slots left, and obviously I would love to fill it up and have some of your listeners, some of the viewers come out. It's going to be an absolutely incredible experience. But
That's
please
cool.
do head over.
You know, the cool thing, that the reason why I wanted to have you mention that on the show, Joseph, is because you don't typically. I've known you for a long time, and you don't typically do anything halfway. Right, and you true. Almost to a fault, you apply that Apple quality to all the stuff that you do, which is why you're surrounded by so much gear right now in your studio.
No idea what you're talking about. I don't see anything. Do you see the gear?
Exactly. Yeah, pull that curtain up behind you. All right, Wizard of Oz. But so I would imagine, I haven't been on a workshop with you before, but I would imagine this workshop is going to be
except for the one that we did together back in Joshua Tree.
Yeah, down in Joshua Tree. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And you same level of detail. We need to redo that workshop. Workshop. Cool.
We should. I think Lottie's available. She's still around.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, she's getting married, by the way. Well, cool. All right. So anything else on India that you want to share before we move on to what your real pick of the week is?
Just hit the website. And obviously, if you have any questions at all, just shoot me an email or reach out on Twitter or Facebook, whatever. It's all PhotoJoseph everywhere. I'm happy to answer any questions. But it's going to be a really, really great experience. It is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Of this, there is no doubt. Yeah. We have an incredible tour organizer that's put together all the logistics on the ground there. We've got great hotels that we're staying in. We're staying in this incredible tent city for the main event because there's obviously nowhere near that many hotel rooms in the area. These absolute luxury tents, they're incredible. And the whole thing is just going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So
that's cool. Yeah, it sounds like an Indiana Jones adventure.
Less snakes.
Yeah,
yes.
No snakes. Cool. No snakes. So what's your real pick of the week?
So the real pick of the week is actually a cheap one. It's off of eBay. You can buy these old Russian screw mount lenses for next to nothing, right? So this is one that I picked up recently. It's all in Russian. I would love to tell you what it's called. I can't. But it's a 58 millimeter f2 lens. And it was recommended to me in particular because it's got kind of a swirly bokeh, and it's a screw mount, M42 screw mount. Okay, so to put this, the cool thing is you can adapt this to just about anything with the right adapter. So originally I bought just a plain straight through adapter to my Micro Four Thirds, but then it becomes a very long lens. It almost doubles and it becomes like a 100+ millimeter lens, and you were kind of missing some of the swirly bokeh. And so someone recommended that I pick up a what do you call the boosters, lens boosters,
Metabone speed booster.
That's Metabone speed booster. It's like $800. This lens was $25. I really am not going to spend $800. And then I found this guy, which is from Zhongyi, which is the same manufacturer that makes one of my favorite lenses, and it is essentially a speed booster. It's essentially the same thing. It's got glass in it. It takes this full frame-ish lens and adapts it so that I can actually use most of the lens, and I can shoot wide open at f2, and I get this beautiful bokeh, a little bit of lens flare. The lens is definitely not perfect. It's got some weird curvature, weird chromatic aberration, especially around the edges, but it's a beautiful thing. It's this beautiful analog look. So if you like analog lenses, if you like things that aren't perfectly sharp and pristine, go on eBay, get some old Russian screw mount M42 lenses, and then find the right adapter. And this is, I think, $150 versus the $800 for the real thing. And I know it's not as good. That's, hopefully it's not as good for the price difference.
Right.
But for this, it works, and it's just awesome. And I'm having so much fun with these. So that's my pick of the week.
Very cool. Well, give me links to all that stuff so I can I can put it in the notes. Yeah, and Eric, if you give me a link to that course too, I'll make. Understanding the basics is the best way to get high quality. What are your thoughts on this? Who wants to take that one?
I'll take it. I would say you have to learn to walk before you can run. Mm-hmm. You need the technique. You need to have those base techniques. But then once you have those, it takes experience to get something good. Anybody can learn the technique, right? Technical is easy. It's just learning stuff. And if you don't figure it out the first time, do it over and over again, you'll eventually learn it. Yeah. But the art side of it, that's the hard thing. But you can't do good art without learning the technique. That's why I love photography. It's one of the many reasons that I think it's so amazing is it is a combination of technical and creative. To truly be great at it, you have to do both.
Yeah. I would modify the sentence. I would go, from my experience, technique loves experience. Mm-hmm. And what it is you have to, like you just said, you have to know the technique, but then you have to actually go out and do it and experience it. So just learning the technique doesn't help. But if you love the experience and you have the technique, that's where those things come together. It's almost like you need one and the other.
Yeah, it's almost like what they say, luck equals...
Favors the prepared. Oh.
Well, yeah, favors the prepared, but the other one is luck equals knowledge and timing, right? You got to have those two things to equal the third, which people call luck.
Yeah. The technique thing, it's, and I'm guilty of this myself. You learn how to do something. You learn it because you watch videos, you read a book, you sit there and you go, okay, I know how to set the camera. Okay, I know how this technique works. I'm ready to go shoot that. And you could even be as confident saying, I could do that for a client. But the first time you actually do it, and the second and probably the 10th time you actually do it, you learn how many other things there are with her. You realize just how much you don't know. Yes, I know how to achieve this. I know how to set the camera to do this, but I had no idea that this was going to happen, that was going to go wrong, this other thing was going to come into play, and that only comes from experience.
Yeah.
But you can't have that experience if you don't know the technique.
Yep, love it, perfect. Yeah, and that works for pretty much everything in life, right? Not just photography.
True that.
Cool. All right, next question, Stephen Sharp. This may be more of a statement than a question. He says your point you are discussing should have been addressed in the verification and validation phase.
I think he's talking about testing QA side.
Probably the Q&A stuff. Yeah. Stephen has a strong biotech background, so you have to.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of they should, but a lot of companies ignore that phase.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that's the thing. Why do you ignore that? Oh, because we have customers. Why should we hire those Q&A people when we have customers?
Because the CFOs walking in and saying, we don't need that. Let's cut that out.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and Frederick, from working in tech, there's always the battle between engineering and marketing.
Oh yeah.
If it was up to engineering, they would never ship.
Right. Oh
right?
Yeah.
Engineering would sit on it and iterate forever.
Yeah.
Marketing, on the other hand, wanted it shipped last week. So you got those two coming together, and they have to meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. My experience with engineers, and I love all you engineers, especially the ones I used to work with. My experience with engineers from a marketing guy standpoint was whenever I went to visit my engineer, I always felt like the like the fly bothering the yak. The yak's sitting there doing his thing, and you come over and you're like, yeah, these are the features I want in the next rev of this product, and you're just whatever, get away from me, But yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that. All right, let's take the next question. It's from Ralph Barrett. He says, when I worked for Pulitzer, they installed a Russian RIP system to their chain of papers. It was corporate-wide beta tests. Harlequin RIPs were standard. Pulitzer had papers that could not print. Another statement.
Try to save money. Doesn't work all the time.
It doesn't work. Or, it'll get you either at the beginning or the end, right? So at one point, you're going to pay.
Everybody pays.
Trevor Pinocchi says, no question is algorithm writing artistic. And there are some coders who are artists. Oh, okay.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree. I agree.
There also are some photographers that are artists, and there also are some house builders that are artists. But there's also some house builders that make squeaky floors.
Yes.
They're not artists.
Thank you. That is very true. There are some people that are house builders and some people that they take pride in their work. And and
they're artists. And I know craftsmen and artists that are builders, and they build really great products. And if they built you a squeaky floor, they'd replace it.
Yeah, exactly. Before you even saw it, right? I wouldn't even know. Yeah. So
because they're artists. And that's their art.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's part of my keynote down at F64 Live is kind of dissecting the line between artist or photographer and artist. Like what is a photographer? Everybody, and what is an artist? How do you move from one to the other, or who is the governing authority that says you're an artist when you you get to ascend to being an artist? Yeah. All right, here's another one from Stephen Sharf. He says, how do you manage the trade-off between the need to innovate, trying and failing, versus the need to maximize quality for released products? Who wants to take this one? Yeah. How do you maximize the need to, like you're saying, Eric, failing forward? How do you fail forward while still keeping a level of quality so that you don't cause a revolt from your customer base?
Well, I think with that, that's up to the company and the individual a lot of times. It also probably matters on what you're doing. Is like you talked about. is what you're doing so mission critical that if we release this product, it's going to cause harm or pain to somebody? Like, if you release an OS that's going to like ruin somebody's computer, I mean, you could ruin a big part of their life. I mean, with all the data and all the stuff that's on there.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're doing something where you're innovating and you're making a product that's never existed before, you know, a new camera that's going to shoot in, you know, some insane frame rates, or it's going to shoot holographically or something like that. Like, it's nothing we've done before. It's not really anything that's established or mission critical, that it's probably good to release your product just to get it out there so you can iterate, so you can get feedback. Right. I mean, so you can get that base. So I think it's kind of that balance between that, like, what are you really doing or what are you really building? You know, for example, I mean, you look at like I hate to go back to it, I'm just a nerd about it, SpaceX, you know, and you look at that stuff, like the reason we're going to send up a astronaut to the space station next year on a SpaceX rocket is because they were willing to have trade-offs in innovation before they put astronauts on. So they had a plan to do that. Now that it's mission critical, you better believe that, yes, we're checking off every box.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, they weren't. I mean, that's why they had some failures. That's why they had some things blow up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But they learned. Yeah. But they learned from the experience. They learned. It's like going back to the technique. They had a technique. They had an experience. But then they learned from it, and they applied what they learned, and that's wisdom. You know?
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, my head's going to explode. I love this stuff. Ruth Happel says, as cameras converge with computers, what's the perfect balance between software updates versus new cameras? Can we upgrade bodies less often by relying on software? I've been arguing for this for years. Like, how come I can't, you know, why can't we? I mean, we can upgrade our firmware, but it feels like cameras should be more like phones, or phones should merge with cameras and, you know, allow me to add features like you add features in your blind spot detection on the Tesla. How come I can't add those to my camera and have it connected all the time? Sony was doing that, and then they stopped. Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I don't know. We agree, Ruth. Joseph,
yeah, I mean, just to toot the Lumix horn, they have been certainly very good about that, especially on the flagship cameras, of adding new features and even announcing them, saying this is what we're going to be adding. You know, when the GH5 first shipped, it shipped with a roadmap of by summer or whatever it was going to be, we're going to be adding the 400 megabit and all these other great features, and that was huge, right? And those came also along with some bug fixes and some surprise new features, and there's nothing saying that's done. You know, these could continue to be iterated ad nauseum. At some point, you hit a wall where you go, okay, well, we'd like to do this feature, but the processor can't handle it, so now it has to go to a future iteration of the hardware. But I think to what your point is about, why aren't they more like phones, where it's more not open source, but more an open platform where other people can write apps for it. Yeah. That I would love to see. I would love to see that on the camera manufacturers, where you can install a third-party app onto your camera that does certain things. That's maybe a better HDR, right? Like, these cameras have HDR built into them. It's okay, but I'll bet it could be better. I'll bet if you let loose some serious engineer on it, they could do something incredible, and you'd have unbelievable in-camera HDR.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It just feels like Apple proved out that ecosystem, the app economy. Apple built the app economy for these mobile devices. It just seems like the logical next step if you have a computer like the one you have in front of you there, Joseph. It's a supercomputer for the most part. You know, why not give me an app store experience for that?
Aren't we seeing that kind of? The major manufacturers have not embraced this yet, but we're kind of seeing that with some of the experimental cameras that are coming out that are built on top of like Android platforms or iOS platforms, like the light camera that you see coming out, you know, and stuff like that.
Is that out yet, by the way?
Well, I think they're shipping it, but I haven't seen one yet.
That's the one with like the bug eyes on
16
it, right?
lenses or something,
Right.
Yeah. But I do think that, like to your point, we're going to get to that point where it has to be, because if not, then cell phones are just going to get so good, and those manufacturers are going to get so good that there will be only a small niche left for the photography or the high-end camera, that the masses will just go over there because it's good enough. The quality is good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, while your cell phones, our smartphones with cameras are getting better and better, and those cameras will continue to get better and better, they are going to probably always have a small sensor. And that small sensor in 10 years might be as good as a full-frame sensor is today. But by that point, a full-frame sensor will be, incredibly better and so on, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Other dimensions.
Yeah. But there's no reason that I know of that a camera manufacturer couldn't say, or a new company couldn't say, all right, we're going to build a full-size camera or a micro four thirds camera or whatever, but with a proper sensor, interchangeable lens, and it's going to be backed by an operating system, and that operating system is going to be Android because that's what's readily available. Right? The company can't license iOS, but they can put Android on. So why not make a camera, a real camera, not a camera phone, but a real camera that runs Android?
Right. Yeah. Well, there's been a couple of them up there. I mean, even Panasonic did it, right? They have a phone that's masquerading as a camera. And
right.
Kodak did it. I'm
talking about a full-size DSLR type, DSLM type camera, interchangeable lens that's running an operating system that anybody can write apps for. Why not?
Yeah. Hopefully it's not a case of us all being born too early, and it's going to show up when we've already left the party. But hopefully we'll see that. All right, here's a good comment from Trevor Panaki in the chat room. I'm going to add this in. Trevor says, "Ask GoPro about bad drone software." Right, so which is a perfect illustration of rushing to market and feeling the pressure of the competition, DJI, who are crushing it and innovating, and then you decide that you want to get in and get a piece of that pie. I don't know what happened with the Karma drone, but it wasn't ready, and they were falling out of the sky, which I think is one of their core features, was to stay airborne, right? But
especially because the safety implications of that.
Man,
I mean, come on.
I have visions of those things like falling in baby carriages with like spinning propellers, and then that, of course, that's the end of GoPro right there. Yeah. But I mean, that's a good point.
Ask them how their stock price is doing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Ouch.
Yeah. They're a juicy acquisition. I don't even know if they're a juicy acquisition target at this point, right?
I don't know.
Good comment there, Trevor.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Any more questions we have in here? Let's see.
Brian Fisher, full size starts at 6 by 4.5.
What did he go?
Full size sensor, 6 by 4.5.
yeah. He's at that now. Brian's on that big camera kick right now.
Nice.
All right. Christopher Berry has the last question in here. He says, "What is the last beta test that you were a part of, and how long did it take you to get a fix for the issue, assuming it was actually fixed and not a software workaround?" Joseph, why don't you take this first, man? Have you been impacted by something?
He does put beta test in quotes, so I'm going to take that to mean not an actual beta app. But today,
really?
Every day I swear, I'm the kind of person. This is one of my failures. Most normal people, they will be using a software or hardware or whatever it is, and they find a problem with it, and they go, okay, that doesn't work. Work around it and continue on to get the job done. No, I got to go. Why doesn't it work? How can I reproduce this?
Yeah.
It's my going back to the Apple side, right? I go, how do I reproduce it? Who do I contact? I'm going to file a report. I'm going to find out who to talk to. I'm going to tell them exactly, and I'll waste half of my day because I'm stupid like this, figuring out.
I've seen this happen, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen it.
And then I end up in this dialogue with the company, going back and forth, arguing with them usually over why no, it really is broken. They're telling me it isn't, until I finally prove it to them, and they go, oh yeah, you're right, and then they fix it.
Yeah.
I gotta stop, Frederick. Just slap me next time I'm like, just slap me.
All right,
I gotta just.
I'm recording this, so just for the record, I have a visual record of you giving me authority to do this.
So frustrating, but I deal with this all the time. It's so annoying.
Yeah, and you're like the customer. I don't know if it's from heaven or hell, but you're that customer that is insanely detailed. Like, you'll give them the write up and the steps to reproduce, as well as a video of it happening. The logs from your computer, everything, and then they're
100% true. Well, because I know I've done it enough times, I know what they're going to ask for.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go, it doesn't work, and make them ask me a bunch of questions. I'll say, this is what happened. This is how to reproduce it. Here's the logs. Here's the screen cap. Here, right? Fix it.
Yeah.
And then they come back and go, it's not broken. I'm like, just come here.
Yeah.
Oh no, I love it. I love it when people do that. I mean, I love the detail. I mean, because that's what you want to just go reproduce it. And sometimes you just can't reproduce it. But if with enough information, Because then you'll find out, well, it was because it was a Windows 10 machine on this processor, and we'll be like, okay, well, how do we dig up a machine that has that on it? And when we do, yeah, lo and behold, there's the error. Yeah. We couldn't reproduce it. We could do all the emulation we want, but you can't reproduce it.
Yeah, or you'll find out that, hey, you'll look at their system setup, and you have 2 megabytes of RAM in your system.
Yeah.
And you're complaining that the software is running slow. Joseph, I'm going to throw one last one at you. This is from a user in the chat room called Neodon. Added to the broadcast here. Neodon says, hi, PhotoJoseph. How do I make a YouTube avatar like yours, please?
Oh, there's a guy named Quan who did that. I'd have to dig up his email or his Twitter, but tweet me at PhotoJoseph. Just tweet me, ask me about that, and I will connect you to him. He's where is he? Is he Indonesia? I think he's this young guy who did a bunch of art for other YouTubers just for fun. He did one of MKBHD and Casey and did a bunch of them, and I saw him like, oh, that's really cool. And I reached out to him and I said, what would you charge me to do one of me? And he gave me a price, and I said, fine, let's do it.
Nice.
And he drew it for me. We went back and forth, made some changes to it, but yeah, I dig it. It's fun to have.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, reach out to me. I'll introduce you to him. I know he could use the work. If you're actually willing to pay for it, he would appreciate it. So yeah, reach out to me on Twitter.
Support the community.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, gents. Thank you for hanging in there. I know we ran a little bit long, but we're at the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. PhotoJoseph, I'll let you kick us off there. Where can people go to connect with you and otherwise see what you're up to and interact online?
It is PhotoJoseph everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, PhotoJoseph.com. That's where you'll find it all.
Awesome. PhotoJoseph. Very cool. All right, Erik Kuna, and you, where can people go to check out your stuff?
Same way. I'm at Erik Kuna across the board, and then erikkuna.com.
With a K.
So ERIK,
yeah.
KUNA.
ERIKKUNA, erikkuna.com, at Erik Kuna all over the place. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. And be sure, folks, definitely go check out the interview I did with Erik. We dive into the rocket photography stuff in depth.
Yeah, I got to check that out.
Yeah, light painting. And there's some shots that are on the page there that show that one shot that you were talking about, the Tesla, with the 3 Teslas in the foreground and the SpaceX launch in the background, which is insane, which is actually multiple shots composited together, which so good work. So definitely check that out, folks, if you have time to do that. All right. We are at the end of another episode. Like I said, if you want to stay up to date on all things This Week in Photo, you can subscribe to us over at thisweekinphoto.com/subscribe. Also, if you wouldn't mind, subscribe to us on YouTube. That way you'll get notified, and click that bell. You'll get notified when we launch a new show or schedule a new show. And also remember, we are on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and iTunes now. So if you love those platforms, head over there and subscribe. And with that, it is time to take that lens cap off. Peace.